Yet, even by these standards, the recent events in Syria stand out as particularly momentous and unprecedented. After 13 long years, the iron grip of Bashar al-Assad's regime has finally been broken, leaving a nation in turmoil. The Syrian dictator, once seemingly invincible, is gone, his power dismantled. Assad's fall, however, has not ushered in an era of peace and stability, but rather chaos and uncertainty. Instead, it has created a dangerous power vacuum, a void that many are eager to fill. Rebel groups, each with their own agendas and allegiances, are vying for control of the country, leading to further conflict. The most powerful of these is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a hardline Islamist group that now holds sway over Damascus and other key areas, asserting their dominance. This chaotic situation has sent shockwaves across the region and beyond, affecting neighboring countries. For Israel, Syria's northern neighbor, the collapse of the Assad regime represents both a challenge and an opportunity, a double-edged sword. The challenge stems from the uncertainty and instability that now reign supreme in Syria, threatening regional security. The opportunity, on the other hand, lies in the potential to reshape the regional balance of power in Israel's favor, a strategic advantage. The world watches with bated breath as the drama in Syria continues to unfold, with every development closely monitored. The stakes could not be higher, as the outcome will have far-reaching consequences. The future of the Middle East, and indeed the world, may well hinge on the outcome of this latest chapter in the Syrian tragedy, a pivotal moment in history. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011 as a peaceful uprising against the Assad regime, has morphed into one of the most devastating and prolonged conflicts of the 21st century. Millions of Syrians have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries and beyond, often under dire conditions. The war has claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands, leaving countless others with physical and psychological scars that may never fully heal. The collapse of the Assad regime, while welcomed by many Syrians who yearned for freedom and democracy, has brought about a new wave of suffering and uncertainty. With no clear authority in place, the country is teetering on the brink of anarchy and lawlessness. The interim government, headed by Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir, is struggling to assert its authority and bring stability. Adding to the chaos is the involvement of external actors, each pursuing their own interests and agendas. Russia, a longtime ally of Assad, has maintained a significant military presence in Syria. Iran, another key player in the region, has also provided substantial support to the Assad regime. In this complex and volatile environment, the Syrian people are caught in the crossfire, struggling to survive. Their hopes for a better future have been dashed time and again, leaving them in despair. The international community, meanwhile, seems powerless to stop the bloodshed and bring about lasting peace. Israel, facing a potential security threat on its northern border, has not stood idly by as Syria descends into chaos and instability. In a series of swift and decisive military operations, the Israeli Defense Forces have launched a comprehensive campaign aimed at preventing hostile forces from gaining a foothold in the war-torn country. This operation, dubbed Bashan Arrow, is a testament to Israel's unwavering commitment to protecting its national security interests and ensuring regional stability. The operation, which began in the early hours of December 9, 2024, has seen the Israeli Air Force carry out hundreds of airstrikes against strategic targets across Syria. These targets include military airfields, weapons depots, and other critical infrastructure, and command and control centers, which are vital for enemy operations. The IDF has also deployed ground forces into the demilitarized zone, separating Israel from Syria, a bold move not seen in decades. The scale and intensity of Operation Bashan Arrow underscore the seriousness with which Israel views the evolving situation in Syria. With the Assad regime gone, Israel is determined to prevent hostile actors, particularly those backed by Iran, from filling the power vacuum and threatening regional peace.
The IDF's operations are a clear signal that Israel will not allow its security to be compromised under any circumstances. We are taking proactive measures to ensure that no hostile forces can take advantage of the volatile situation in Syria.
Section 5. The international community responds. The international community has reacted with a mixture of condemnation and cautious support to Israel's military operations in Syria.
The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting to discuss the escalating situation. The UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, warning that the situation could spiral out of control. He urged all parties to exercise restraint and to respect Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The Arab League, meanwhile, condemned Israel's actions as a violation of international law and called for an end to the airstrikes. Egypt, a key regional player, expressed its deep concern over the escalation of violence and urged Israel to exercise restraint.
The United States, a staunch ally of Israel, has expressed its understanding of Israel's security concerns. However, the Biden administration has also called for de-escalation and a return to dialogue.
Lost in the geopolitical calculations and military maneuvers is the plight of the Syrian people. Already battered by years of war, they are now bearing the brunt of yet another round of violence.
The IDF's airstrikes, while targeting military installations, have inevitably resulted in civilian casualties. Hospitals and other civilian infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed, further exacerbating the humanitarian crisis in the country.
The Syrian people, who had hoped that the fall of Assad would bring an end to their suffering, now find themselves caught in a new nightmare. International aid organizations are struggling to provide assistance to those in need.
The ongoing violence and insecurity make it extremely dangerous for aid workers to operate in Syria. The international community must do more to alleviate the suffering of the Syrian people and to find a peaceful solution to the conflict.
The collapse of the Assad regime and the subsequent Israeli intervention have sent shockwaves through the Middle East, upending the regional balance of power and creating new alliances and rivalries.
Iran, which had emerged as a major player in the region through its support for Assad, now faces a more challenging environment. Israel's determination to counter Iranian influence in Syria is forcing Tehran to rethink its strategy.
Turkey, another major regional power, is also grappling with the implications of the changing dynamics in Syria. Ankara views the Kurdish forces in northern Syria, which have been backed by the United States, as a threat to its national security.
Russia, meanwhile, is seeking to preserve its interests in Syria, including its naval base in Tartus. Moscow has emerged as a key power broker in the Syrian conflict, but its influence is being challenged by the new realities on the ground.
The future of Syria remains uncertain. The country is fragmented, with various armed groups controlling different parts of the territory. The interim government is weak and lacks international recognition.
The possibility of a negotiated settlement to the conflict seems remote at best. The various parties involved have shown little willingness to compromise on their core demands.
In the meantime, the Syrian people continue to suffer. Millions remain displaced from their homes, living in precarious conditions in refugee camps or informal settlements.
The economy is in ruins, and basic services are scarce. The international community has a moral obligation to do more to help the Syrian people and to find a lasting solution to the conflict.
However, given the complexity of the situation and the lack of political will, it is difficult to be optimistic about the prospects for peace in Syria. As the world watches the unfolding events in Syria with a mix of horror and helplessness, it is essential to remember that behind the headlines and the geopolitical maneuvering are real people whose lives have been shattered by years of conflict.
The Syrian people, who have endured unimaginable suffering, deserve a future free from violence and oppression. The international community must come together to demand an end to the bloodshed and to support a political solution that meets the aspirations of the Syrian people.
The alternative, continued conflict and instability, is simply unacceptable. The risks of a wider regional conflagration are too great to ignore. The time for action is now.
The world cannot afford to stand by as Syria burns.